the developer.
The $400,000 budget adjustment in our summary, is it covered this?
I'm sorry, when you say in the summary.
Let me see if I can get it first. It's on page 10,
Okay.
under general, 402,000.
I'm sorry, in the general fund?
No, in the general fund, that is not for this. In the general
Right, that's
fund,
the
that is,
rebates.
that's going to be the rebates. We brought in more sales tax, so our contractual agreements require that we pay more, so we have to adjust, because the revenue came in, we have to adjust the expense accordingly.
Okay.
This one is going to be reflected on, the adjustment is going to be on page 12, that's the 350,920. That's the one that she's talking about now, and that's going to be just to reflect the debt service payment and the receipt of revenue from the developer to pay that.
As well as the administrative fee of $35,000, but again, the developer has already paid that.
Janine, shouldn't the, on the Midtown, shouldn't there be some percentages showing on the far right column there for comparing? something?
No, because it's going to the previous year budget, and since that's zero, it errors out, so that's why we show it as just a dash mark for now. Because it's not going from the estimated year end, it's going from the original budget.
And I had one question on the PEG fund. Is,
Mhm.
so 120 revenue, 120 operating expense, do we have anything planned for that?
That is one that we can use, but it's very, very limited. So if we go ahead and put a budget in there in case something comes up that that we need to do for our cable channel, but it has to be limited for items related to broadcasting and pretty much on our cable channel. Like we do our council, we did the equipment for our council meetings from that because we broadcast those on our cable channel, but it's very limited. But we don't have anything in particular. Keep the budget there in case
Yeah.
something comes up in the year that you want to do.
Okay. Could that apply to content on the channel?
It has to be the equipment for the content,
Okay.
not the content itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
Let's move on to the internal service funds, and these are going to be supported by charges to the operating funds, the departments. An equipment replacement fund, we've talked quite a bit about that. If you got any questions, let me know, but again, the departments are now paying 100%, up to $75,000, and that's where the Cardinal steps in to help that out. So that's why you'll see a pretty significant change here in that 26% increase in revenues, and then the 82% increase in the actual operating expenses. We've got just a little less than $3 million that you'll see on page 5-10. Is all the equipment that are proposed to be purchased for the new year, and that does include that the expedited purchase of the aerial platform. That's what we included in there.
so just to point out that there's no, when you try to compare prior year to current year on equipment replacement, there really is no comparison. It's whatever vehicles are due. We're accumulating the revenue each year from depreciation, but one year you may be buying pavers and dump trucks and fire trucks, and then the next year you may be buying police cars. So, when you see an 82% increase there, keep in mind that that's whatever pieces of equipment are coming due for the upcoming year. This one happens to include the fire truck, so obviously it's significantly larger.
Okay, and then the insurance fund, as Ms. Schedule pointed out the other night, self-funded medical and dental plan for the city's employees as well as retirees. She explained the program really well, the funding the other night really well. If you want us to go back into it, we will. Other than that, I'll just move on to basically what do we have next year. For $7.5 million is coming in from all the other funds to cover the expenditures of $7.4 million. There's the increase, the 14% we've been talking about. Again, this year we would recommend an increase in budget adjustment to increase the $350,000 to transfer that in from car rental into this fund. So that's why we've got a projected increase in the revenues for that portion of it, which is kind of taken away from everything else. And that's just the reduction there you'll see is based on what people actually signed up for at the beginning of the year. We do our best to project at the beginning of the year how people are going to sign up during open enrollment for insurance. But of course, we're not perfect on how their lives have changed and who we're going to have hired for the new year.
Loretta, can we talk a little bit on that fund? As we look into next year's budget, I know that you start working already for next year's budget, especially in this fund. Can you give us some regular reports on what your estimates are gonna be for next year? If there's any changes in the law, I feel like our insurance is just gonna be that elephant in the room, and I would just like to be better informed
Well,
in that area.
this will be one of our top priorities, and really starting in October, as soon as we finish open enrollment, to start trying to look for any other options. I mean, if you look at that, look at the actual for 2015.
Yeah.
5.3 million, we're expecting to spend 7.2 million for 2016.
Exactly.
That is unsustainable.
Right.
But as I've said to y'all before, the dilemma is, the law says you cannot charge an employee more than a 9.5% of their wages. You have to offer certain coverages, you have to offer wellness, you have to provide birth control for ladies at no cost, wellness is at no cost. You have to limit the out-of-pocket maximum that a family can spend. There are so many rules that when you, in the past, on things that you could eliminate. So a couple of the things that we're looking at for next year, I think I mentioned to you the other day, is eliminating any benefit for anything out of network. If you're out of network, unless it's a forced provider, that means if you go to an ER, you have to do that. If you have an anesthesiologist, you just don't have any control of that. But if you choose to go to a doctor out of network, there's a very good chance next year we would pay nothing. The other thing we can potentially look at is, instead of offering a PPO, there are EPOs. Those are not popular, they cause lots of disruption in your plan, but you limit the number of facilities and providers that your employees can use to an even smaller group, so that you try to get a bigger discount. There's just not a lot of other options out there. We're gonna be getting with our consultants. We've already had a meeting with Web TPA to see. I'm not sure what, we will absolutely look again at fully insured. But the problem with that is fully insured goes and looks at our experience, and they base our prices on our experience. So I don't see that changing. And just yesterday, I was made aware of another very potentially large claim in our population. So I don't know what the answer is today, but it'll absolutely be one of our top priorities.
And I have no idea if this would be legal or possible or anything else. With the exchanges out there and people able to buy at the exchanges, is it even feasible or legal to say, okay, we're not going to offer our own plan, we're paying for each person whatever the number is, we will pay that much of your premium, you go find your plan?
Then you have to pay the federal penalty for not offering it.
Okay.
So there's.
That's why I wasn't sure if there was
that's-
some.
The irony of this thing is there's pretty much
But
every
but we'd
every
be offering
turn
it,
you
we'd
go.
be saying, buy your own, we're paying your 75% of your premium, up to this dollar.
If we do not, well, we have to offer our plan and cover our employees, and if we do not, then we will pay a penalty.
Okay, so there's no way you can,
So,
you can
yeah.
let people buy their own and you pay their premium? Okay.
Is there a way to combine with other cities to have a bigger base?
Well, that's exactly what TML is, and we've gone to TML is nonprofit, is set up for that purpose. They have an insurance fund. We've had them bid our product or our plans many times. Their rates have been substantially higher because they do the same thing the insurance company. TML is not going to allow the city of Euless to basically be a drain on the other cities that are in the pool, so they price you based on your experience. We've said before, occasionally when you go out and look at the fully insured market, you can get a really good price year one, and then you will see a 30 or 40% increase in year two. So we try to protect against someone basically buying the business and then the very next year killing us with a huge rate increase. I wish I could tell you I knew the answer to this today. I probably spend as much time in insurance as I do just about anything else, and trying to look for options. And we have very good consultants, we have good experts, but the way it's structured now, there just aren't a lot of things that you could make plan changes in the past that were intended to control cost, but many of those options are no longer available. You can't discriminate against any kind of disease class, so you can't go in and say we're not going to cover these certain things, because generally those are considered to be discriminatory against a particular disease state. I think I've told y'all before that it is not, and there are drugs out there that are considered orphan drugs that can be as much as $500,000 per year for a single drug. You have no choice. I mean, you can't go get a generic. There is no generic. You can't do anything different. So I'm not really sure what the answers are. We did go to this meeting, and I've got all of the details from all of the city managers that came to a meeting at COG just a couple of weeks ago, and there was tremendous focus on health insurance, and I'm going to go through each of those, and if there's anybody that seems to have found something we haven't found. There is one thing that we are hopeful, and I think you all know that we're looking into it, is potentially, you all know that JPS is bringing their facility to Euless, and we have talked with JPS about the possibility of having an employee clinic in that facility. They are looking at that and intend to get back to us. We believe that could be helpful. JPS is reimbursed at a much lesser rate, and their fees are much less than most private hospitals or even your, Texas Harris and all of those. So we're working with them. We think that that is something, if we could get a very successful employee clinic that people might start off going to for the cold and the flu and things like that, that we could potentially expand that down the road to make it an option, almost like our companion global. If y'all know, we've done some really creative things. We will send you to Costa Rica to get your knee replaced because the cost is a third of what you would pay in the U.S. Well, if you do that, then we will rebate you a bit of the savings towards your deductible. Very few people do that. We've had some people take advantage of that. We had one take advantage of it going out of country this past year for that. It's possible that down the road we could work out something with JPS that if you would choose to use a JPS doctor in a JPS facility, that our reimbursement rate to them would be far, far less than we pay to other hospitals. And then perhaps we could share a % of that savings with employees to encourage them or incent them to go to a JPS facility. So we are having those discussions with JPS. I think they're very interested in the employee clinic. I think those other pieces would be further down the road. That is one of the things that we're looking at.
Can you mandate employees use that versus another kind of doctor?
You can mandate that if we were to go like an EPO, we could, basically you would say if you don't go into that network, we would likely not mandate just strictly a JPS because there may be things that you simply could not get from JPS. We would most likely incent that. And so I doubt we would mandate that, but you could heavily incent it. So I mean, if you can go there and the city could get a procedure done for a third of the price and potentially save the plan, $30,000 or $40,000 to allow the employee to save towards their $4,000 deductible, some % of that, you're still netting the plan several thousands of dollars. So that's one of the things we're exploring. There are some things that are starting to come on the market about allowing people products where they can go try to price their procedure at various hospitals. Some cities are starting to use that, but you have to pair that with some sort of an incentive to incentivize them to go to the cheapest one, or I don't believe that would be, if there's no reason for you to pick the cheapest one.
There's a company that we use at my job called Compass.
That's the one that a lot
Yeah,
of people
and they
use.
really do a good job. I mean, they do the research on it. They'll also help you, with prescription drugs. They went through all of the ones that we take as a family and came up with other suggestions and ended up saving us over $1,200 a year.
Wow.
By just changing different types of the medication.
It was funny, we had, at that meeting we were at, and Bob and Chris were there as well, there were, I would say, 3 or 4 cities that were really high on Compass, and and then we had a couple that said they'd used them and dropped them because so I think it maybe it's in the way you utilize them and how you structure it. So we're going to definitely look into that. Chris has already been doing some research on Compass.
They'll actually go through and do a complete audit of your claims. Now, in my particular case, I shouldn't have done that, but because they found a mistake the other way. But they're very, very thorough, and they're very responsive. I don't know what I have no idea what they charge.
There is another group out there that's starting to say, don't even have a network, just that they're strictly reimbursing based off of a Medicare rate table. The problem with that is that it's a huge risk for your employees, because every place they go then would be out of network, and they would be subject to balance billing, and those balance billings could be thousands and thousands of dollars. So until that one were to get some, it would take some sort of legislative backing, I think, where the patient could not be held responsible for those thousands of dollars. So we know that is out there, but I think that's very limited in its use right now, because it can really devastate the employees from balance billing. Those are the things that we've heard about. If you all hear of anything else through your methods, let us know. There's just no, but I mean, that right there is unsustainable, but that's exactly what we're seeing from the other cities as well, so.
Well, the private sector is the exact same thing.
Right.
You know, our prices went up substantially, and we have the highest deductible I've ever dealt with in my whole working career.
Yeah. And I showed y'all that, basically, where I told you about the chart we saw, which was that when Medicare and Medicaid capped their reimbursement rates, that the hospitals have shifted that cost into the insurers' rates, and so I don't know, but that's something that Debbie and I have already been talking about, and we will start October 1 trying to look for new solutions for next year. So, and I've actually visited with both Police and Fire Association to let them know that, you know, we have to do something, and so they're aware too that we've got to do something here. So
It seems like from a consumer standpoint, it's almost the opposite kind of incentive. If you anticipate your insurance benefits are getting worse every year, you want to take advantage of everything you can toward the end of your plan year to, take your whatever your current deductible is instead of anticipating it going up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
yeah, and the problem with is even though these deductibles have gotten to, in out-of-pocket maximums, have gotten to be these huge numbers, it's $6,400 I think for an employee and $13,000 for a family, the out-of-pocket maximum, and that sounds, you know, horrible if you're going to get a bill for $13,000 or for $6,400, whatever it is. But if you think about it, most every procedure now, even just minor out of, day procedures, are $30,000 to $50,000. Well, if you as an employee go in and have one procedure at the beginning of the year and you hit your maximum out of pocket, for the rest of the year, the city is required by law to pay 100%. We cannot charge you anything else for anything, not your prescriptions, not your medical. I mean, once you hit your maximum out of pocket, as a consumer, it is free to you. And
Yeah,
so
max
how
it
do
out.
you encourage,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying that people are gonna go out and
Right.
just have a surgery to max out, but if you have to have a surgery and you have that
You know what
October the
you're-
1st,
Why would you delay it?
and you're maxed out, the rest of the year, it is free to you. I shouldn't even be talking about this in context of our employees, that's every employee,
Yeah,
because
that's
that's the
everywhere.
law.
Yeah.
But once you have no skin in the game,
Yeah.
then if you need something else, or, I mean, there's absolutely no incentive
Yeah.
at that point for you to shop around, for you to look for an alternative, because there is zero coming out of your pocket. But as an employer, if your costs get too high, starting in 2018, they're proposing a quote Cadillac tax, because your plan is too rich. So I don't understand how all of that can possibly fit without a cost containment measure in that, but, anyway, that to me is part of the problem, is you have to have an incentive too for an employee. I agree that you need, that I think the intent was to not have employees with these huge bills, but at the point that you have absolutely no risk, then we can give you all the compass tools in the world.
Yeah.
Why do you care to shop
Yeah,
if there's no cost to you?
yeah.
So December is always the busiest month to try and get surgery.
Yeah, true.
I mean, literally, it's almost impossible.
So we're open to every suggestion on this, so.
Thank you, Loretta. I didn't mean to cause a,
Well, I jump on my soapbox
but still on
quickly
the
here.
same token, I appreciate in your expertise, you've proven to us year after year, since I've been on this council, how hard you work in this field. And it's just, when you start looking at those numbers, it's concerning.
It's very,
Very.
Mr. Zimmer, you had a question?
Same thing, thank you for the diligence.
I wish there were options. I really have, starting with about 10, 15 years ago, health insurance is something that I really did sink my teeth into and try to learn about. And there were options in the past of things we could do, and at this point, I'm out of options because of the
When you say
regulations.
unsustainable, you would have to find a mechanism to pass it on in property tax, or what do we say, where does it?
That's the part, Mr. Zimmer, I wish I had the answer for. I mean, if you're mandated to offer it,
Yeah, it sounds like it's a forced mechanism to disperse it among all the citizens.
absolutely. I mean, there is only so much you can pass to the employee. I mean, there are some other things that we could do. Let me be absolutely clear. One of the things you can do is you can say, we will not cover spouses and families. The law does not require you to cover spouse and family. Competitively, you know, that would put you at a real disadvantage to not do that. Let me take that back. You don't have to pay anything towards that. So we could say to our employees, you've got to pay 100% of that side. Right now, we don't. So we still do have options to cost shift, not the employee's part because the law limits that, but you could cost shift more to a spouse and a family. You can refuse to cover spouses if they have coverage available through their own employer. And that's we have a surcharge now. Completely eliminating their coverage is starting to be pretty popular. Because there are so few options. But you literally could say, we're gonna pay 100% of an employee's cost and we'll pay nothing towards your family.
That's what my firm does.
And that is something, so those are where
It
you're
seems to be
getting
well
to.
received.
That's why I can't retire till then.
I think that would be extremely unpopular here, but it's obviously, we've said we'll put everything on the table and look at everything. So are there still options to shift to the employee?
Some few left. but
There are
we're
a
gonna
few
have
left,
to
but it would
put
get
it
into
up.
basically a complete rethinking of the benefits that have been offered in the past, where you would simply say, we can no longer provide either any benefit, or we have to provide a much reduced benefit for your dependents. So,
What if we just hire a company doctor?
well,
You
that's,
say that,
Say, here you go.
I can tell you a city that's done that.
Really?
Didn't Bedford do something similar to that?
Where's Leonard Martin Carrollton,
yeah,
where he's
but
retired?
it's not mandatory, it's
No, it's not
like an
mandatory.
employee clinic.
They
It's down
created
to
an employee clinic and they have a doctor that is an employee that sees everybody. So I mean, people are trying, everybody keeps talking about this COG meeting. There were 30+ cities there. It was not about health insurance, it was about tax rates, all financial aspects, but the dominant conversation was health insurance. And there are self-insured people in there, there are Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Aetna, whatever you, every gamut was represented, and everybody has the same. And those things are interesting to sit there and listen to the different things people are trying, but everybody is struggling with this, and I would tell you, my personal opinion is the system's broke. We are all trying to game the system or figure out the system. The issue is the
The
system's
rig
broke.
Yeah, it's very
But
broken.
we do recognize there's a limit to what you can pass to the citizens, we recognize there's a limit to what the employees can pay, and you're trying to find a balance to that, so.
The 929 of increase here, only a portion of it comes back to general, 600 basically, and then there's other employees and other funds that.
Yes,
absorb
that
the rest of
900
it.
is cumulative of all the funds, and so whichever fund the employee is assigned to pays its share.
Okay.
So if it's a golf course employee, the golf course pays, water pays water, and so forth, yes.